All right, ladies and gentlemen, thanks again for tuning in. This is Save America, Vote Tulsi Gabbard. I am the flawed but appointed host of this channel, self-appointed. My name is Dave. I would just say aloha. And as I said on Twitter a couple days ago, where you guys all been? I am watching the moment, and you know what's interesting here? Tulsi Gabbard was brilliant right at this point in the debate, because here's deer in the headlights, Tim Ryan, looking as his career is ending. And by the way, this is a clip from the Jimmy Dore show, where Jimmy Dore, he does live comedy. He goes out there, and his audience is so sophisticated that they enjoy watching clips of politicians, and then Jimmy Dore breaks it down and makes fun of it. This is a brilliant format, by the way, and it shows that there are people in the country who are really, hate to use Tim Ryan's word here, but engaged in politics, all right, and they care about the country, and they can kind of laugh about it too. Like Lee Camp has a whole show doing this called Redacted, and I think both of the formats are brilliant because it makes this horrible tasting medicine you know, a little bit more palatable, because when you watch this stuff and you learn this stuff, really, you know, oftentimes I say your head's going to explode. You need to grab the duct tape and the bubble wrap to prevent that from happening. But let's pick this up here. And I hate to even say this, but I've got to say this. Rachel Maddow right here, somebody who I was really worried about, because she does do the Russian conspiracy thing at the end and the Russian hoaxing, because she's got so much invested in this. But she asked the question, and she allows, and she knows that Tulsi Gabbard is the only one on this stage who is different on this issue. And she actually facilitates Tulsi's comeback here, which is right on par with, you know, Lloyd Benson's whole thing about knowing JFK and telling Dan Quayle years ago, "You're no JFK." It was a brilliant moment in that debate, even though, you know, was it Dukakis and Benson would eventually lose to Bush and Quayle, but it was just one of those legendary moments in politics. Let's pick this up.
Like Youngstown, Ohio, or Flint, Michigan, or rebuilding.
Congresswoman Gabbard, I'm going to give you 30 seconds, actually, to jump off what he said.
Okay, notice, well, the applause in this room, Jimmy Dore here, in his, because they know, Congresswoman, we're going to give you 30 seconds. This is a big deal because, number one, they didn't want her to talk, okay? Or they wanted her to talk as little as possible. Or they wanted to get her on, you know, like the Bernie Sanders economic stuff so she could basically talk up, you know, things like Medicare for all, which for them, even though it's uncomfortable, it's a lot more palatable and safer than, you know, as this video is titled here, Tulsi Gabbard shuts down warmongering Tim Ryan. This was an incredible moment. You knew what was coming, and what was coming was basically the beginning of Tulsi Gabbard's ascendancy to possibly being the Democratic Party nominee.
What you will tell the parents of those 2 soldiers who were just killed in Afghanistan? Well, we just have to be engaged. As a soldier, I will tell you that answer is unacceptable.
And there it is. And there it is. It's unacceptable. This is a new kind of politician, because just the look in her eyes, the expression where she's like, all you know how to do is do CIA talking points. Well, you know, we need to be engaged. We need to, you know, we need to rebuild and engage and rebuild. And what are you talking about, Tim Ryan? What are you saying? We've been saying this for 20 years. It hasn't worked. It hasn't worked. We don't need to be in Afghanistan. You're basically saying, oh, in case there's a flare-up, we need to be there to put it out, like a fireman. We need to go there and put it out. No, we don't. You know what we need? We need somebody who's going to stand up for the people who live in this country. All right? By the way, this is why I believe Tulsi Gabbard could win all 50 states. Now, there are a couple that might be difficult, like Kansas or Oklahoma. But she would win all of the liberal strongholds because she is for all of those policies. For those of you who just want intersectionality in your candidate, which it's, there's this woman from Texas that's running, I forget her name. She was on with Jimmy Dore, and she actually said at one point, I'm running because intersectionality. She didn't even use a conjunction. She said, I'm running because intersectionality. And I'm like, okay, it's really cool how you check off all these boxes, but what are you for? Put that first, and you could say at the very end, after you've spoken on every single issue, you can, once you get to hangnails, well, I'm here to help people with hangnails. Oh, and by the way, I'm Latino, I'm a woman, I'm this old, I've got, whatever other boxes you want to talk about, fine. But talk about issues here. So, again, the Jimmy Dore audience goes crazy. And they should. And they should. This is a candidate who not only means what she says, but she says what she means. I mean, I know that's cliche, but this is unusual. This is rare. And one of the reasons I was feeling very confident about jumping off the Trump train is because I had the Tulsi train, which was a much better train to jump over to, and I gotta say, it's one of those things where in life you say, okay, here's somebody who's just better. They're a better human being than I am. They're cut from, they're better stock. They've got intrinsic qualities that I don't have as a person, and I see it in her, but I don't see it in other politicians. She's a very rare bird, and what's amazing to me is that most Americans have been more or less shielded from her. A few tuned in. Her name got Googled. Her name ID started to go up, and I'm sure her campaign donations went up. I'd love to see where she's at now. If she qualifies for that third debate, she's rolling. I mean, I already believe she's rolling right now, meaning that I think she is going to be in this until, the primaries actually happen. And she's not going to be a footnote. She's not going to be an afterthought. She's already made a huge impact. She can roll these clips now until the first primary or the Iowa caucuses, and people are going to remember that she stood up to the war machine. And the way she relates everything, she relates it back to fiscal responsibility, where the country's been wasting money for decades. And now here we are at a point where we have to stop what we're doing. Libertarians, Tea Party people, and I mean, the Tea Partiers, they don't want government spending. So you have to confront them and say, okay, well, which government spending is okay? Because you're telling us that you can't do welfare, but you can do warfare. All right? Which is worse? I'd say warfare doesn't help anybody here in the United States for the most part, unless you're, again, a military contractor or somebody who's in the military. But even that doesn't really help you, because most of those people who are in the military, a lot of them have to turn to things like food stamps in order to survive, because they're not making a living wage a lot of times. So I'd rather see it go to people here. And if you're saying, well, all these welfare recipients, they waste it or they buy frivolous things with their food stamps or whatever, that's a load of crap compared to the idea that, we send troops. We just deployed, what, 1,000 or 1,500 troops to Iran, right? We deployed them. They're on their way, all right? How much is that costing? How much does that cost? Is that a waste? And why are we going to war with a country that hasn't threatened us? Yes, they shot down a drone. That was over their country, okay? So if somebody sends a drone over the United States, are we going to shoot it down? Of course we are. Of course we are. So people are starting to wake up to this false equivalency that seems to have taken over the American mind. And all of you old school anti-war people, I'm with you. I'm with you. I might be with you for different reasons, but I'm with you. I understand war, as what was it, Edwin Starr said. I'm the music guy, so I should know this. Bruce Springsteen covered it. What is it good for? It's good for absolutely nothing. It's good for absolutely nothing. Now you'll say, well, it's not, because we saved the world, World War II. It's been a long time since war actually did anything that might have helped humanity, okay? But for the most part, people can agree that, it was still a horrible thing that millions of people had to die, okay? So war really isn't good for anything. Yeah, there might be a reason to fight back if we have to fight back. And Tulsi Gabbard, by the way, for those of you who are more on the right, I think she's okay with fighting legitimate terrorism. But I think her fighting would be much more limited, much more surgical, and she would exhaust every option before, taking that path. Not, hey, we've wanted this guy Pompeo and Bolton. Bolton's wanted a war in Iran since like 1992. Okay, so and I don't understand how Trump put him. I don't get what Trump did with that at all. His constituents, if they were true to themselves and a lot of Trump people voted for Trump because they thought, hey, we're gonna stop meddling, and he was on the debate stage telling the rest of the Republican field how going into Iraq was a big fat mistake. That's what he said. It was a big fat mistake. And so Tulsi Gabbard represents something new that we haven't seen. She's a combination of so many different things. And if she were to become the Democratic presidential nominee, she would take all of that populist air out of the room from Donald Trump. And Donald Trump would begin to look like the clown show that he really is. But people have turned to the clown show because they've got nowhere else to go. The clown show isn't the establishment, even though Trump has pretty much filled his administration up with a bunch of establishment hacks who are there to carry the water and be more or less like a liaison between him and the deep state, which basically calls all the shots. Tulsi Gabbard, she'd be telling the deep state to take a hike, all right? And I think she's the only one who's running for president right now who could handle that. Everybody else would just assimilate and just get along with these people who, for the most part, don't have any of our interests in mind. What they want to do is just expand their own power, expand the empire, keep America, this global police force, so we can tell other countries what to do and how to run their own affairs, which is not even 1/1,000,000th of what the founding fathers would want for this country. So again, if you're a constitutional conservative, you should be taking a hard look at Tulsi Gabbard's presidential campaign. And if you're worried about wedge issues, I don't know what to tell you. I'm over the wedge issues. I don't like hearing about wedge issues. I don't like candidates like Kamala Harris and Joe Biden and this guy Julian Castro who foist these wedge issues to the front, and they want to rattle, the conservative Christians or whoever they want to rattle. Okay, it's really counterproductive to a unity message which Tulsi Gabbard has. So there you go. Tulsi Gabbard giving it to the establishment. Let me see if I can get Tim Ryan's face back up here, because it's so enjoyable to see just the way he, his deer in the headlight look when they do the split screen here. Tulsi gets the stage, which is fantastic. But I tell you, Tim Ryan, I don't know if they had the split screen here. They just went right to Tulsi. I give a little credit. I actually give a little credit to Rachel Maddow here, because I'm actually shocked. There's a good Tim Ryan shot right there. What do you mean? The military-industrial complex, they pay for everything. They pay for my campaign. You can't do this to me. By the way, this loser wrote like a fundraising letter or something, where at the end he said, we can't, side with somebody who cozies up to evil dictators like Assad and has dinner with them and so forth. And it's like, okay, where's the duct tape? Where's the bubble wrap? Because my head's going to explode. Because this whole argument that she was wrong to talk to our enemies. I mean, this whole thing about, will you talk without preconditions? How are you ever going to negotiate? How are you ever going to find out what these people are all about? If you're not talking with them, then you have no intention of trying to fix the problem. And Tulsi Gabbard is somebody who I believe would use diplomacy, would talk to our enemies, and get things done without dropping bombs. And I think if you're not for that, I can't help you, okay? I can't help you. I can't convince you. Because there are a bunch of people around this country who all they are really concerned about is supporting the troops without thinking about what mission they're on. I mean, you'll see it all July 4th. There's supermarket chains where I live who are donating money to the troops and their families, which is fine. But nobody ever thinks about what those troops are sent off to do. They don't think about it anymore. It's just, yes, we need to support the troops. But do you support the mission they're on? Tulsi Gabbard is questioning the mission. And I think it's one of the great moments in American politics to have somebody who stands up to this entire system and says no more. And that's why I think she can win all 50 states. It's not at all facetious to believe that. So there you go. We leave you with the deer in the headlight look from Tim Ryan. I think it's quite fitting because I think his candidacy is, or his term, might be up soon, might be up in 2020. You could run somebody who's maybe independent to the left of him, who is anti-war and for unions and so forth in Ohio. I think you could kick his butt right out of Congress, and he's been there too long, quite honestly. Especially the kind of work that he's supposedly doing in there. He's just a placeholder. He's not getting anything done, and he has no business, by the way, running for president. It's just silly. All right, I'm done. I'll be back soon. Aloha, and thanks for tuning in. Thanks for subscribing. Don't forget, if you want to donate to this channel, Patreon. It'll take you over to where my music platform is too. Everybody's over there. It's just a grand time. I'm almost making enough money now to buy groceries for the month. Who knows? It's week to week, folks. If you can help me out, $1 or $2 a month keeps the channel going, and with the growth and all. And again, I am monetized, but I get demonetized a lot, and I typically lose the first 1,000, 2,000 views on these videos. It's just really silly. If I was getting 100,000 views on a video, I really wouldn't care that much because I'd get like 98% of the revenue, but I'm getting probably less than half of the revenue from each of these videos. So, but thanks for watching and for subscribing, and I'll be back again soon, so stay tuned.